Vice President Mike Pence tells the United Nations no more money, by Gary Mayer for USA Politics Today. The United States has for decades paid the lion's share of the money that the United Nations uses for all its pet projects, and now the Trump administration is saying we will do it ourselves without you. The United States is the largest donor to the United Nations, contributing about $611 million this year to the regular budget of more than $2.5 billion. Washington also contributes more than $2 billion annually to peacekeeping and hundreds of millions more to programs including the UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, and the World Food Program. In a speech this week, Mike Pence was happy to announce that the Trump administration was no longer going to rely on the United Nations to be the only ones in charge of giving out funds earmarked to aid persecuted Christians in the Middle East. The VP made the announcement at the Solidarity Dinner for Christians in the Middle East, which is an annual gala held by the In Defense of Christians in Washington, D.C. Previously, under the Obama administration, funds that were meant for humanitarian efforts were given over to the United Nations with over $1 billion in funding entrusted. My friends, those days are over, said Pence to the crowd. Now the funding that once went to the UN will be given to faith-based organizations who will be in charge of distribution. Our fellow Christians and all who are persecuted in the Middle East should not have to rely on multinational institutions when America can help them directly. Pence said that it was his privilege to announce that Trump has ordered the State Department to halt the funds, saying that their ineffective relief efforts will be themselves relieved and handed to Americans who will provide support more directly. We will no longer rely on the UN alone for persecuted.
Our fellow Christians and all who are persecuted in the Middle East should not have to rely on multinational institutions when America can help them directly. And tonight, it is my privilege to announce that President Trump has ordered the State Department to stop funding ineffective relief efforts at the United Nations, and from this day forward, America will provide support directly to persecuted communities through USAID.
That's it. And it is a step, and now they need to just defund the United Nations entirely. Trump is heading in that direction. Earlier this month, we wrote about the Trump administration's decision to remove its membership from the UN's educational, scientific, and cultural organizer, UNESCO. The country will be officially withdrawn on December 31st, with Trump citing their anti-Israel bias. In April of this year, we announced that Trump was looking to end American funding of the United Nations Population Fund, which has been linked to the Chinese one-child policy, which ends in many women undergoing abortions instead of suffering breaking the law. This aligned with the executive order he signed in January that brought back the Mexico City policy, which governs American money paying for abortions overseas, which was updated to allow Rex Tillerson to expand the policy to every country that receives American health funding. Donald Trump's bid to slash funding for the United Nations would make it impossible for it to continue its essential work, a UN spokesman has said. Good, the United Nations has been worthless and, quite frankly, an enemy to the United States in many ways. It is a hotbed of socialism and communism. They give terrorist nations a seat on the Security Council. Need I say more? Upon arriving at the United Nations in January, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley said she would be looking at what is working and fixing what is not. Anything that seems to be obsolete and not necessary, we're going to do away with, Haley warned. As most of it is not working and obsolete, Get rid of most of it. The federal government cannot micromanage the UN. Really cannot micromanage. The UN must go. Totally agree with this. Hallelujah. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.